Welcome to Rebecca and Rebecca,
where we love books. Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode of Rebecca and Rebecca. I'm Rebecca Reed from rural Indiana, and this is my partner in books, Rebecca Yager from outside of Dallas, Texas. Hi, Rebecca. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm also good. Our spring has been a bit chilly, so I'm wearing my sweater because it was cold outside. So
Well, hopefully by the time this airs in June, it'll be nice and warm, right?
I hope so, because it's been warm. It's like there's been warm and cold. Like it's just been like up and down and up and down. I think it's been that way all over the country, so this is probably not something that's shocking anyone to hear this, but regardless, this is one of our favorite days because we are speaking to an author, and we are so happy to welcome Cate Touryan with us today. She's a new author to us, but we're going to chat about her book, Turning Toward Eden. So, Cate, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with both of you.
And we're really excited about this story. It's a different kind of story, and we're going to get into that. But before we do that, Rebecca's going to read her bio. So we just introduce her a little bit to you so you kind of know where she's coming from.
Yes. Let's introduce Cate to the world here. Cate Touryan's storytelling is deeply rooted in coasts, from the Mediterranean coast of her birth to the central California coast, where she lives near the beach that inspired her first novel. With a career in education and editing, she brings a lyrical, literary voice to her work. When she's not writing, she enjoys walking seaside trails, reading old classics, and discovering new ones, conjuring joy with loved ones, and looking for stars to put in her pocket. Both her fiction and creative nonfiction are marked by rich atmosphere, compassion for conflicted characters, and a faith that sees the invisible. Ooh, I like that. All right. So we're really going to talk about, we do want to get to know you better, but we want to talk about Turning Toward Eden as well, which was your debut novel. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've done a lot of other kinds of writing, but this is the first novel that I did do a novel for my master's thesis. It was more of a novella, but I did not publish that one. So this is my first published full-length novel. Yes.
Goodness,
Well,
and
that's
it's a good
awesome.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It definitely has a lot of depth, for a lot of times that's the problem with a first novel, even if it's the second one or the third one. The first published novel, a lot of times, it just takes a while for a writer to develop, their voice and their just everything about the tools and knowing, how to tell a good story. And the depth is one of the things that I really liked about this novel. I feel like each character, you get to know each character so well. And none of them are cookie cutter. They're all unique. You did a great job of giving them such an interesting voice. And your author voice, I just loved your author voice.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate hearing that you enjoyed the depth, because sometimes the depth can be daunting for some readers because it is a little different. So I appreciate it that you enjoyed a little bit of a deeper dive, I guess.
That's definitely my preference. And I know there are plenty, and there's places for all of the types of novels,
Sure.
But as for me personally, and I think anybody who's watched this podcast is going to realize that that's kind of where we both land, Rebecca and I, we want characters who have to face things that are difficult, and we want to know, how are they going to deal with this, and what changes is it going to make in their lives? And you've definitely accomplished that. Where did you get the idea for this novel? I guess is where I want to start.
Well, I started it 25 plus years ago, thinking that I would write a YA novel for my teenage daughter. And my own teenage years were still still part of that. I was young enough to still try looking back at my own teenage years, looking at some of the injustices, especially in high school. There were so many people who, when I looked back on it, I thought they are so either misunderstood or they're kind of they don't fit anywhere. And I think I might have felt that a little bit too, that I didn't really fit either, because we moved 12 times in 12 years and I had a very hard time feeling, oh, you too, okay.
Air Force
Yeah.
brat, so yes, I understand that.
And so I know that feeling of being like this outsider and how difficult it is to break into these groups. And then reliving kind of my own teenage years through my teenage daughter made me think, I want to write about this and I want to, in my kind of imaginative way, right some of the wrongs that I saw happening in high school. And some of those wrongs were mine too, because, you know, as a Christian, I you know, grew up in a Christian home. And as a Christian, I always would feel really bad about how my peers would ostracize or shun or just ignore other people. But I would often do the same thing because I need to be liked. And if I look like I'm liking her, then maybe they won't like me. And it was just such a mess. And I was conflicted as a Christian about how do I live out my faith and not care whether people like me or not for the choices I'm making to include other people. So I think I wanted to kind of go back and kind of look at it from an adult perspective and understand what is behind the way we treat each other, especially in our teenage years, which can be pretty rough. Which you probably know, Rebecca, because I think, do you teach it's a high school level that you teach, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I see that all the time. I see both sides of that. I see the ostrich that, you know, where they separate each other. And sorry. And I see the, you know, the square pegs trying to fit into the round holes, or the square pegs who are absolutely not going to fit into that hole, no matter how much we try to encourage them. You know, because you see both of them, right? You see the ones who want to fit in, and you see the ones who are like, no, I'm not going to fit in. And even if that's detrimental to their education, they are not going to fit in regardless. And so you see both that whole, there's so, you know, the emotions and the hormones and the angst and just like all that learning curve that's going on in those young adult lives. And it consumes some people. You know, they're all kind of obsessed with something, I feel like.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and I think that's true. That carries on with the main character of this book. Eden is
She
obsessed.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
With Raven, the
Yes.
Soviet girl that comes to town, which we'll talk more about. But setting this book in the early 70s, I don't know, I love that because you did such a great job. I jumped right back to the 70s and the vibe of it all. It was wonderful. Was there a reason for the 70s instead of more contemporary, or just?
Well, in 1971, I was the same age as Eden, and I was living right here in the same place. And I know it's almost like it's not at all autobiographical, but it draws from it's inspired by the actual places and the actual time and the actual feelings of my high school and certain characters and people in my life. So I draw from them, and then I just fictionalize it all to create a world that works in the way it's supposed to instead of the way that it did. And I think that that's what I knew best at the time. And it's funny because too, was when I wrote it, I intended it to be YA, but that was 25 years ago. And today's YA is not so interested in that period of time. It's more baby boomers who really like the 70s and they like the nostalgia and they like to go back and be like, oh, I remember my kind of adolescence and all of that. And so it's been interesting for me to see that it's resonating with people more my age, baby boomers, than it is with young adults. And that's okay. I'm happy to have anybody who wants to read it. But I just think it's because that was a very it was an impressionable period in my life. A lot of things were happening. I had just moved at the age of 13 to the Central Coast, brand new high school. Everybody had already been in this small town and they were all in their little cliques. And so I think it was I really still felt the effect of coming in as a new person in this environment. So yeah, I think I just wrote about it because I knew it so well.
Right.
Well, it shows. I mean, because the settings, the descriptions, the feel, the vibes,
Mm.
the slang that you use and the clothing and all of the things that mark that decade are all there. So if you do remember that, it's all there and you can kind of go back to your own childhood or adolescence and feel all of that because it's definitely included in the story and all of that plays a role in the story too, because if you had set this somewhere else in some other time period, the whole idea of her being obsessed with Raven because she's Russian would not have been a thing.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the gal from our high school who I sort of modeled her after, actually she lives just a few blocks from me now, and I gave her a copy of the book and I said, you kind of inspired this from high school. She actually was Russian at the time. She was probably the only one in our high school. So yeah, it wasn't much of a departure, and she was very much shunned at the time. But she wasn't. I think she liked it. She kind of liked being a little bit different from everybody. She didn't have a hard time with it, but I felt like that she needed to be pulled into the group. And as I've gone, as I've gotten older, I understand that she kind of enjoyed her gothic persona at the time, and she still sort of lives out that kind of a. She's still kind of the hippie girl in a way. So yeah, I think it was just projecting a lot of my own insecurities and worries and fears and Christian guilt about I need to be better and I need to love people that are not like me and just all of that stuff that you're going through, which is why I have the Reverend trying to help her understand love, because this is a hard concept given her situation with her family that's
Hmm.
happening at the same time.
Hmm.
Well, that's
Well,
kind of where I was going next. I don't know about you, but like the whole her brother, of course, is a huge part of the story, Dex. And you tell that story of his difficulties with such a heart, and it makes us, just feel, well, Eden, feel the Eden's frustration, and also, his just desire to be seen. I feel like, he has all these things that aren't getting communicated because everybody thinks he can't communicate, right? So he's frustrated, they're frustrated, there's a whole, and then the whole thing with the mom and the mother and the father, and how all that affected the family. It's just that is such a huge piece in this story and part of Eden's issues, really. I mean, a lot of her problems stem from how she is trying to figure out to how to deal with that, all of that.
Mhm.
And so is Dex modeled after someone you know? Because it seems like you're very familiar with this type of situation.
Yes, my mother and father eventually divorced, and when he remarried, he had a son. The son is probably now, I think he's maybe in his late 30s, so quite a bit younger, but he's now in a home, although my father did raise him until he couldn't carry him anymore. He got too big for him. So he is now living in a home, but he is the model for Dex. And so I watched him. I was an adult at the time when he was born, but I watched my father's love for him. My father was completely the opposite. He wouldn't put him in a home. He wanted to care for him. He really loved this little boy. And just seeing that relationship and that love and that trying to make connections with someone that just doesn't have the ability to make those connections, but who could hug, like, oh my goodness, the hugs that would just come around us. And there's someone in there, like you said, who wants to be seen and who has so much love to give. It's very touching to think about the relationship my dad had with his son, and then to watch how you can only go so far, and at that point, they're just you just wait for heaven when the Lord will heal, and that little boy will now be that little boy, and we'll get to love on him, and we'll just that's for me. I wanted this book, and I dedicate it to him because I did want him to be seen, because he's just precious. He's in an institution now. COVID shut down everything, so my dad wasn't able to visit him anymore, and so he really doesn't have much contact at this stage because now my dad's very sick. But I wanted to honor this relationship, and just what it means to love when it's difficult and when you don't quite know how, because it's like the only language that you have left when you don't have language, because he has nothing. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was on my Instagram this week. I had the little picture of him as my inspiration when he's about 6 years old, sitting on his little alligator seesaw, which makes an appearance in the book too. So yeah, very much. Yeah.
Well, I think that's why I liked also the character of Rosa, the caregiver, because she sees what was there was a quote in there about the mucho heart, what his heart is big,
Yes. And she's always telling, because Eden's always saying he's not saying anything, and she's saying he is saying something, because Eden is, but they don't mean anything. Why do you ask him questions? He can't respond. And Rose is like, yes, he can. And you just have to learn how to listen, right? And yeah.
Yeah, a lesson for all of us, I think.
I know, I think so too. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
In general. All right, we're gonna I want to talk about every character in the book, but we can't, because we do want to get to you. But we do have to talk about Hollis.
Yes.
I love Hollis. Well, let's talk about Hollis. He was such a grounding force for Eden, and just so steady and calm, yet he just he's happy to work, and he's happy to fish, and he's happy to do this, and here comes Eden with all this drama and angst of a 14-year-old, and he's just so patient with her, and I love that. Is he based on anybody, or is he just somebody you wish you had?
Well, my husband says the right answer is to say that it's based on him, but
yeah, sounds like my husband would say that. So
I think he's probably just a composite of just the different people that I don't know, just different people. I never had any brothers other than my brother that I modeled Dex after, so we're a family of all girls. I don't know, maybe he was just partly like the big brother I would have had if I had picked a big brother, what he might be like. And I did want to, I'm not big into romance, and I wouldn't say there's romance necessarily in the book, but then I'm the author, so maybe you see it differently. But I did want there to be a little bit of the hint of possibly at one point as she gets older, because she's still young and he's, older. But right now he's the older brother of a slew of sisters. So it's just like another sister for him. But I still wanted there to be enough of a sweetness that, which is why the mom calls him your bow, that's your bow. And she's highly, highly not ready for, she's very resistant, but it's going to come, down the road. So, I think a lot of people want romance in books, and it wasn't a big theme, but I put just enough maybe of their relationship that it opened up that possibility eventually.
Well, I read one of your reviews, what the reviewer was putting in her dibs for I want
yes.
a sequel to this book down the road, a few years down the road. So
see what happens. Yes. It's possible. It could. Yes. Yeah.
And the poker buddies. I mean, come on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That whole micro setting of the bar and the poker and all the things that go on at the store, and all those little things, that is just such an awesome part of the story, because that's a lot of where your vibes come from too. Your 70s vibe. You got these old people and they're doing their thing, and then Eden just kind of barges in there, and gets like totally accepted by one and totally rejected by the other, pretty much. And it's just hilarious. I mean, it really gives you a lot of easy like in scene tension places, right? To kind of bring that ebb and flow of, and kind of pull and push the story forward. And I really enjoyed them too. We like side characters a lot. So they're pretty awesome as far as side characters go. And they all kind of have their own thing going on too. It's not like they're just there for Eden, they have all lives. They have things going on and
Yeah,
she just sort of comes in like a bowling ball and
exactly.
He was a Texas tornado. So
That's
Mhm.
right. That's exactly right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I love that world too. I actually lived in, so it's modeled, so Harford Beach is modeled on Avila Beach, which is a very popular beach here on the Central Coast. And I lived in Avila Beach in the 70s. And that's how it was. There were the locals, there were the fishermen, there was the little diners and all of the people getting together playing cards. So that a lot of that was very authentic to the year that I was actually living in Avila. And I wanted to duplicate that or replicate that because it's such a wonderful world that most people, we're so busy with our lives that we sometimes forget there's these little pockets of little worlds or universes that other things are happening and different kinds of people um and it meant a lot. I loved getting to know how other people live and how they relate and what their lives are like. So yeah.
I mean, you could almost pick a character. I would love a book about Jake or, pick a
I know.
character,
Yeah.
all this and write more. So,
Yeah, I could.
Or prequels, with
Yes.
what
yeah.
happened first, right? This is their story. This is where they
Yeah.
were and how they got here, because that would be fun with those characters as well.
With Jake and Anna, his sister, my free reader magnet, it's a free reader magnet. It's 1910. They're a brother and a sister, and they go through this bonding experience. It's kind of harrowing bonding experience, which explains some of what happens in the book. So people can get the prequel. It's maybe I think it's about how many pages? 20 pages or so. It's not very
Hmm.
long. It's more like a short story, 20 to
Okay.
30 pages. But it does go back to 1910 and what creates this very tight bond between Anna and her brother Jake.
Okay. Well, that I might have to go and get because that would
Okay.
be very interesting, I think.
Okay, so yeah, it's just signing up for the newsletter and
Yep.
you can have it as an
Okay.
audio too, by the way. There's also an
Oh,
audio version. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Rebecca
That's my
is our
favorite.
audio person.
I
Yes.
know. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do that. Well, we actually, Rebecca, we did this a little out of order for our author interview because
Oh,
usually we dive into
Okay.
stuff about the author first and then we go into the book. But
well, I
as
think
you
the characters are more interesting, actually.
but as you can tell, we liked the book and almost couldn't wait to dive in. But I do want
Oh.
to get to know you a little better. Readers do like to connect, and one of the most fascinating things I saw was what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Yes.
Please share. So,
Please share.
please
Yes.
share.
Well, I mean, most writers usually say, "Oh, I wanted to be a writer," and yeah, I did want to be a writer. But I think when I look beneath that to see why, I realized that yeah, it was what I said there. I was going to be an escape artist because I had to get out. I had to get out of the world I was in, and it was really a difficult childhood in many, many ways. And
Mhm.
books were really my escape. I think for a lot of people, when
Yeah.
we have a lot of tension in the home or moving constantly,
Mhm.
losing friends, I mean, it's just when that happens, your safe place is the worlds are
Mhm.
safe. They're contained in these books, and you know that they're not going to spin out of control like your world is. You feel like your world is just spinning. So yeah, books were my escape, and an earthquake could happen, a fire could happen, the house could collapse around me, and I would never have known it. I would have been so lost in that book because that's where I lived. I lived in them. And the power of writers to be able to do that for someone, it was like better than the best kind of magician when you can transport someone in
Mhm.
so completely into another world. I almost didn't want to be the characters in the book as much as I wanted to be the author who could create those kinds of characters to pull other people into those safe worlds. And honestly, I think that got me through my childhood was those books were healing and they were
Mhm.
safe. And so I read that, and that's kind of why I wanted to write it as a YA book, because I thought, well, there's maybe other kids who are going through really rough times, and so I want them to feel a safe world. Um, and yet is sort of more of an adult book, I think, at this point. But that was sort of the impetus behind it, is I'd like to give back in the way that I was given to
Right.
as yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did the transition happen then to writing from that world of books? I mean,
Yeah, I think there were a couple things that kind of came together. So I read constantly to escape because there was no pain in the books, or if there was pain, it was controlled and it would come out okay. So escaping the world around me and the chaos and the moving and all of that. But I think too, I had a second grade teacher who read aloud every single day after lunch. Bless those teachers. They don't know what an impact they are making on us. I mean, so I just loved hearing her read aloud for an hour after lunch. And then she encouraged us to write, and I just kept writing, and uh, always seemed to be able to. And what's kind of interesting is even though I did always want to write novels, I ended up writing more short pieces, short stories, creative nonfiction. I love creative nonfiction, flash fiction, possibly because you could contain those and get them done within a reasonable amount of time.
yes.
So the problem was like, I kind of had to wait till I semi-retired to be able to write something that was on a bigger scale. So the novel's kind of a dream deferred, but in the meantime, I was doing a lot of other kinds of writing. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And teaching it, obviously. I was an English major, so I was teaching English too. Yeah.
I'm always surrounded by teachers, I tell you.
We're the best sort. That's why you hang out with us.
That's it. Well, my daughter is a tutor, a private tutor, so I guess
Oh,
that counts
Yeah.
too.
See, that's yeah.
So I'm not one.
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have a piece of writing advice? We also like to gear this towards writers besides
Mhm.
readers. And we know writing can be difficult. Um, and sometimes you feel alone or whatever, but what is there encouragement or something you could share with other writers?
Sure. Yeah. I think, well, I would say, first of all, know the why. Why are you writing? I think it's really important to know that why, and then to kind of put horse blinders on and just keep on why are you doing this? If you want to publish, do you want to publish? Do you want to have a career as a writer? You have to pay bills from the books that or are you writing more as an artistic? It's an artistic
Mhm.
expression. It's maybe cathartic. It's maybe a form of worship. I think writing is a wonderful form of worship because you're creating in collaboration with the Lord. And know why you're doing it, because there's so many. I was not prepared for the voices coming from everywhere saying, you have to do this, or you have to do that, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. And it was just, I didn't even know, I couldn't even sort out, like, am I doing it wrong constantly? And I don't want to be so distracted by all the voices. I just want to hear what the Lord has asked me to do and then be faithful to that. So I would say know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Try not to be it's hard. Try not to be distracted by this guru over here who says you have to do this, and this one over here who says you have to do, those kinds of things. I
Yeah.
think a lot of that advice can be helpful. But I think a lot of it is also very specific to certain people. It's not all for everybody, right?
Mhm.
So if you mean to have a career, that's one thing. But I don't need to generate, and I mean, I would like to make a little money maybe, but I don't need it as a career because I already have, the career. So I see it more as an artistic endeavor, something that I want to create beauty. I don't necessarily need to generate a lot of sales. So when I hear things like, well, did you turn out another book yet? Because you need a backlist, because if you don't have your backlist, you can't. And then I get all anxious, and then I can't create, and then I forget why I'm even doing it in the first place. So just know your why, stay faithful to that, stay true to that, and find the reward in the journey, because the destination will happen the way the Lord wants it to happen if you're
Mhm.
faithful to that
Mhm.
journey.
Mhm.
And for me with this book, I had so many agents and publishers interested, but nobody was willing to take a chance on it in the Christian industry, in the Christian market, because they couldn't figure out where it would go on the bookshelf. It's kind of part mystery, and it's kind of historical, and it's kind of retro, and so they would just come back and be like, we don't even know exactly. Is it YA? Is it adult? Is it secular, general? Because I didn't want to market it necessarily as a quote Christian book, because I'm hoping the whole point of the title is I want readers to start turning toward Eden. I want them to be introduced to God and a Christian worldview. So I don't think anybody knew what to do with that. And I think I think if I had just said, okay, fine, I'm just a complete misfit and I'll just put it in a drawer, I think I would have been very, I would not have had the joy of just knowing that I accomplished what the Lord had given me to do. And
Right.
whether it found readership or not, I mean, that's wonderful. But even if it hadn't, I wanted to be able to say that I completed this, I did what the Lord asked me to do, and I can feel so good about the beauty that I create. I just really want to create something beautiful for the Lord. So yeah, I think publishing, if you mix publishing too much in the publishing world with the writing world, sometimes it becomes so daunting because I still don't know how to break into the publish. I have no clue how to break into any of this. I just know that I need to write and be faithful to that and pray that it ministers to the right people,
Mhm.
whether they're Christians or they're general. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind
That's
of my
yeah,
advice.
that's really good. I think everybody is daunted. Even people who have broken in, so to speak, are
Mhm.
still daunted because then they still have to produce another
The
thing and
next
that
book.
is acceptable. And that is very daunting. And um, I've known plenty of people who've had a contract and then the next idea was rejected. So it's not like you break in and are just in because you have to
Yeah.
continually keep producing those ideas that are accepted, and
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
you have to your advice is really good because you have to have a why, and that's important because you're not going to persevere through all of the difficulties, which you're going to have difficulties regardless of whether you have a contract with a traditional publisher, whether you decide to publish independently, whatever you decide to write or do, there's going to be a barrier that you have to break through, no matter what it is, whether it's a learning barrier, whether it's a actual like barrier of, a gatekeeper, whatever it is. And if you are not centered on that, this is what I'm doing and why I'm doing it piece, you're not going to have the perseverance or the will to break through those
Yeah.
things and just keep going. Because most of what gets you published is that you just don't quit. You just keep going until you publish one way or the other. And the people who don't keep going don't get published. And that's just the way it goes. So
Mhm.
if you want to get published, keep going, keep
Mhm.
writing, keep,
Absolutely.
coming up with ideas, whatever they are.
Mhm.
That's the best advice ever. So you're dead on, in my opinion. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of what's coming next, what are you working on? Have something, what's
So
the next big thing?
the big thing. Well, I have the small things. I have the creative nonfiction pieces that I do, but the next big thing is I'm writing I guess I would call it another historical mystery. This time in the 60s. Again, there will be a younger narrator. And this one involves identity, a little bit about identity, because this is sort of a nod to my mother's both side of the family is Armenian. And this is kind of a nod to the Armenian legacy inside of my family and what they went through during World War One in the Middle East and how that translated into all of them there was a great the diaspora of all of the Armenians during the massacre of World War One ended up putting a lot of them in California and Pasadena and in Fresno. And my grandfather was a sole survivor from his family and his village during World War One. He was about 7 years old as far as he can remember, and he's had a very interesting journey, but he ended up being a pastor of a church in Pasadena. And so my mom, that's what my bio says, from the Mediterranean coast to the
Mhm.
California coast. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon, because my mom's dad was, after he had to flee, ended up in Jerusalem, but then the war happened in Jerusalem, and then they had to flee to Beirut, and then I was born in Beirut there. So it's a very interesting backstory or history of my family. But what I wanted to kind of bring to it was what it was like growing up in Pasadena as an Armenian, where the protagonist of my book is she just wants to be an American. She doesn't want to be an Armenian. And so it's
Right.
about how she has to kind of reconcile her own personal history she has to be okay with that and realize that that being an American, whatever she thinks that is not being true to her story and her identity. And so it's kind of a little bit of a nod to that side of the family and an appreciation for where we come from and how we contribute to to everything, especially in America, where we can contribute all of our different ethnicities and histories together. Yes. So, yeah, so I think it's a way of sort of exploring that. And again, I'm drawing from real people, my grandfather, my uncle, all the people that I know. It's like, I want to put them in my books. So that's what I do. I just
But I love that. That makes your stories, I think, authentic if it's going to be anything like
I sure hope so. Yeah.
Turning really Toward Eden. Yeah. So you're in the process of writing this, right?
Yes. Yes, okay. I'm working on that particular one. Yeah. I do have one other one that's I have sketched it out a little bit. That one it's more contemporary and it has to do more with, I think it'll be a mystery as well, but it will be a mystery. It'll be more contemporary, but I really tend to like to go toward character-driven books, and I like to go really, really deep. And I know that's not for every reader. Not every reader goes to a book for serious reading. Sometimes it's like, really, isn't life serious enough? But I really like, I like the serious stuff. So that's what I tend to do. So yeah.
That's it. There's room for everybody. So, and if you're like, I mean, me as a reader, sometimes I need the light stuff, but there are many times, I want to go deep and I want to get involved in the story. So, well, let's give everyone your website. You mentioned your newsletter. So on your newsletter, I presume as these get ready to publish and be out in the world, you'll share the news. So people need to sign up so they don't miss the news.
They do. And it's just a quarterly. I'm not flooding anybody's inboxes. It's just a quarterly. Actually, the quarterly sometimes ends up being 3 times a year, but who's counting, right? So, so anyway, you can go to my website, and it's just my name, Cate with a C. So it's Cate Touryan, and it's just catetouryan.com, and that's where I am on Instagram and on Facebook as well. But if you go on my website, you just sign up, and then yes, the newsletter will come quarterly. I'm trying to be better.
That's fine. I'm gonna spell your name for the audio portion of this. As you mentioned, it's Cate with a C, and then Touryan is Touryan. Very, very simple. You'll find her. I promise you'll find her. Yes. Meanwhile, if you haven't picked up Turning Toward Eden, it's worth the read. Let's go deep, people. And enjoy this. And don't let the 14-year-old protagonist scare you off at all, because she's wonderful.
She is. Yeah. You'll enjoy her and all the little adventures that she goes on. It's very entertaining and very enjoyable. So definitely recommend Turning Toward Eden. And then on our regular podcast here, we have coming up next month in July, we have Terry Ferris and Susan May Warren's Over the Edge, which is the book one. I think they call it Summer Rangers is the series. So that's our July review and interview. And so we'll be looking forward to those. Yes. And
don't forget Book Bites in between. Just go to our website at RebeccaandRebecca.com. You can see the Book Bite schedule of what's coming up this summer, as well as, Terry Ferris. And then we'll have Danielle Grandinetti after that in August. So our whole schedule there. But meanwhile, you need a summer read, so you need to pick up Turning Towards Eden. Cate, we really, really appreciate your time. I think we could talk to you all day long.
I love it. Thank you so much. It's been so fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on. We enjoyed reading your book, and we're glad to share these kinds of books, because this is definitely, like I said, the kind of thing that I enjoy, and I tend to write this type of thing too. So if you enjoy what I write, you'll probably enjoy what Cate writes. Although her voice is so intriguing, it's not at all like mine, but it's very interesting. I just really enjoyed it. So. And we will see you again next month with Terry Ferris's Over the Edge. And don't forget, We're on Instagram and Facebook. We have a website, RebeccaandRebecca.com. You can find our schedules. And then we're on YouTube and all the podcast places. Just search for Rebecca and Rebecca and you'll find us. And we hope to read your comments and like and subscribe. You won't miss anything. And until next month, we'll see you. Have a great month.
Take care.
Thanks.